Pattern predictions to look out to the next 2 weeks. Meteorologist Matt Noyes, 1 degree outside. Weather Network, just a reminder, if you want to get that 14-day forecast anytime, you can do it totally free and 5 stars. Search the number 1 degree outside weather on the App Store and Google Play, and you'll find us waiting for you there. All right, we're going to start out with a hike to 500 millibars. And basically what this is the average temperature through a deep column of the atmosphere from the ground to about 18,000 feet or so. When you see lower heights, that means colder average temperature, and we've colored that in with colder colors. When you see higher heights, that means warmer average temperature, and we've colored that in with warmer colors. As we play things through, I'm not going to stop it over the next 2 weeks. I just want you to notice that the polar vortex remains complete and intact. And we had talked about this over pattern predictions the last couple of times and in the monthly forecast that polar vortex would be reestablishing. What does that mean? It means cold is going to stay on our side of the Northern Hemisphere, and it means be ready for multiple incursions of cold air and energy to drop in. However, things have also changed a little. That we're starting to see a warming of the average temperature, or higher heights, developing across the southern United States. This is so indicative of a change toward a spring pattern. Of course, remember that meteorological winter ends at the end of February. So this 2-week period really is the last 2 weeks of meteorological winter that we're running down. And we're seeing that change at the jet stream level as well. So this is the fast river of air high in the sky that steers storm systems and generally separates colder air to the north of the jet stream from warmer air to the south. I'm going to keep things moving here, but stop along the way. And I want you to notice that, yes, do we still get these big kind of incursions of cold energy? Absolutely. Does it dig out a trough in the jet stream? It does. But is it the same persistent deep trough or dip in the jet stream over the northeast that we saw for so much of the winter that locked us in with cold air? No, not necessarily. Things are changing. You're getting more input of tropical moisture that comes into play out of the Pacific Ocean. You're getting more warmth that's coming up from the south. So do you have an active jet stream? Yes. Do you have an entire time spent on the cold side? Not necessarily, and that means that each one that digs in can get a little bit more what we call amplitude, a little bit more digging that goes on, which increases the chance of more meaningful precipitation. So we're coming into this pattern now that after finding what was higher than average snow, but lower than average actual precipitation, because it was all fluffy, dry snow, you're going to start to find wetter consistency snow, mixed events. There'll be some events that will transition over to rain in parts of southern New England over the next couple of weeks. It really does show up in the temperature anomaly, the difference from normal for temperature at the surface. As we go through, you'll notice that we do hold on to these pockets of cold here in New England. So even as we get out toward the end of the upcoming week, you've got a lot of warmth that builds through the Ohio Valley, tries to get into the Great Lakes, has trouble getting in here at home. That's kind of the theme. You still get these bursts of cold that come in behind each disturbance. So as we get to early next week, we're behind a disturbance that comes in this weekend, and that probably brings some cold with it. As the warmth tries to return, it has trouble, but it may do better as we look at that toward the last day of the month. You start to bring in some warmer than normal air. Of course, there's still these incursions of cold because remember, the polar vortex is still well established. So you start to get into that more classic late winter, early spring seesaw pattern of going milder and going colder. In general, we will trend colder, and that's what you see here in the 14-day forecast for high temperatures, right? But certainly a very different kind of looking pattern than what we've seen over the past several weeks. Low temperatures will be very similar. You will have some nights that get quite cold, particularly with that cold shot that comes in the early part of next week, but overall, again, starting to come out of kind of the depths of midwinter. This does, as you would expect, impact precipitation. When we look at multiple chances for precipitation over the coming days, and we'll get more specific in our insights videos, but generally you've got one at midweek this week, end of the week this week, end of the weekend next weekend, right? So it just keeps coming every few days, but it adds up. And that's why the yellow that you see here is where we pick up over 2 inches of total precipitation over the course of the next 10 days. Notice the two areas that get hit most, the West Coast and the East Coast. And that's because, again, you've got Pacific moisture that comes in. It kind of reorganizes the farther east that it goes. It makes sense then, particularly when you take that pattern and put it with the polar vortex, that you're going to get a stripe of active snow production going on. You're going to see one flare-up that occurs in the western United States. You're going to see another flare-up that occurs in the northeast. So yes, there's still plenty of chances for accumulating snow here in New England. In fact, perhaps quite a bit of it over the next 2 weeks, but a different consistency snow. A wetter snow that will fall, particularly where it falls in central and southern New England, and even in the north. Not going to be as fluffy in nature as it's been over the depths of midwinter. winter. You can see in terms of the timing, the times that kind of stand out for highest precipitation chance, they line up with what I just mentioned to you, right? Midweek, end of weekend, and then every couple of days after that. And I would say what you want to watch for in our 14-day forecast in the app is a consolidation of the precipitation chances around these certain windows, but generally expect them to be about every 2 to 3 days over these last 2 weeks of February. And again, more meaningful in terms of what they can produce for precipitation. Just a reminder also that we always have our 24/7 network that is streaming on your smart TV, online, and on our app. As always, thanks for your support of 1 Degree Outside.
Thanks so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this 1 Degree Outside video.
Get exclusive content, support the mission at membership.onedegreeoutside.com. And don't forget, free and 5 stars on the App Store and Google Play. Search the number 1 Degree Outside weather.